I'm Barbara Rosario for ISSNAFstories, and I'm with Professor Maria Gini, professor at the University of Minnesota. Benvenuta, Maria.
Welcome.
I'd like to begin by congratulating you for receiving the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring, the nation's highest honor for STEM mentoring. So congratulations. And what inspired you to become a mentor?
Well, thanks for the congratulations. Sometimes I think it's important to kind of look in the past. So, when I was in Italy, I've been in Minnesota for more than 40 years, but, I'm Italian, I was in Italy. And when I was young, I was a leader of the Girl Scout groups. And I was a leader, I had a elementary school kids, girls, because only the time where girls and boys are separate. And I kind of still remember how I enjoyed talking with the girls. And I have still in my memory, the girls had to do different things to deserve getting the dots on their hat. All those, that's in a sense, maybe gave me the idea that you can do a lot by just talking with people. And because I also, in Italy at the time, the classes were split, boys and girls, elementary school, even junior high. So growing up in public schools, I was always only with girls. I think, gives you more confidence. And I had more confidence in myself because you never had to kind of fight or try to please, whatever happens when you have a mix. And I think, again, it's not my choice. And it's part, again, of the way the education system is done in Italy. And I think that helped a lot because kind of built much more my confidence.
And what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a mentor?
Well, so first, when I joined the department, it was a very small department. I was the first woman in the department. And I didn't really think much about, in Italy also, there was some problems with women in science and mathematics, engineering. I was in physics, and there were women in my group. I think physics and mathematics in Italy have more women than there are here. Maybe engineering is not as much. And so I didn't really even think much about, I'm the first woman here. It took me a while to figure out why there are no other women here. And then, started talking with some of the students and see them struggling and all those things. So slowly I figured out that the culture here, I think, is worse than in Italy for women, because there is a lot of emphasis on you have to be the best all the times. When girls here, we kind of know, a lot of studies, when girls are in elementary school, they work with the boys, they are similar, they're excited, they do robotics, they do science. As they go to junior high, start changing things, and in high school, things change a lot. So it's just really the local culture in which the girls are told implicitly or told that, mathematics may be too difficult, do something simpler, right? Mentoring people and helping them acquiring confidence, I think is a very important step, because often the problems are you're not confident and you can do things. And then somebody said, well, maybe you're not good. Oh, yeah, I'm not good, right? And building confidence, I think, is one of the really important steps for people to be more successful in life, do what they really want to do as opposed to what they think they can do.
Oh, you're current professor at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Minneapolis, but you study physics in Milan. Tell us about your career journey from Milano to Minnesota.
So first, I have a twin sister. We studied together. We were from elementary school to all the way to the university. We studied together. In college, both of us were in physics. We took a few different classes, but otherwise done everything together. And then when we finished college, we were kind of interested in doing research, but we didn't really have too many ideas exactly what to do. So both of us, we started for 1 year, we taught in a junior high school. And again, in the same place. My sister was given the girls' class. I was given the boys' class. And again, scuola media, right? And at the same time, we're trying to figure out, can we do some research? And so we connected with the faculty who was in the engineering at Politecnico Milano, and he was Marco Somalvico, and he had been to Stanford as a visitor. He came back, this was early 70s and the 60s, after all this the big revolution. So he came back super excited about California, about AI, about all those things. And he was looking for people to work with him. So join his group. So we started working in AI. And then at some point...
also your
my sister, yeah, we're working together. We have lots of
both.
papers together. Right. So, and it's Giuseppina, Gini, and Maria Gini.
Okay.
So we have lots of papers together. And then again, because Marco was saying, oh, you should really try to get a fellowship and go to Stanford, because that's the real place. So we both applied for a national fellowship. Both of us got it. And then it's the adventure now to go to California. And our English is very minimal because we studied French in high school. So then we took evening classes in Milano. So we rough English, and they said, okay, let's go. And so we got there, and we were working with the faculty in the AI lab, which, at Stanford at the time was kind of out of campus, up in the hills. Very, very nice place. And so we kind of got there, and then we really started working on robotics. Again, we worked together, wrote a bunch of papers. We stayed there for more than a year. At some point when I was in Stanford, I met my husband, was a graduate student at Stanford in the numerical analysis group, so born a mathematician. So we kind of, started talking. There was a Casa Italiana, which was, for students, they were doing different activities. So we went there. We met a few other Italians. And so we were there again for quite a long time. And then we came back from Stanford. A long story. Then at some point, my future husband finished his PhD and got a job at Minnesota. So he moved here, and then we talk on the phone and decide to get married. I say, okay, sure, why not? I come to Minnesota. And I had no idea, because of course I've never been here, nobody knew much. This was like in very early ages, earlier times, before the web. If you kind of think, we grow up in a society very different than the way things are now. So anyway, I said, sure, I'll come. And I still remember, I mention all the times here because I find it funny. I mentioned to some friends, oh, I'm going to Minneapolis. Say, oh, where there are the car races. I say, what? No, Indianapolis. This is Minneapolis. It's different. Again, I came here without really knowing much, Again, I've been in Stanford, so, learn more English, understood much more of the society, but, never had to teach. And so just pick up things and learn and observe. And we've been here for 42 years. So we like the place. After the problem, it's still a very nice place where to live and where to teach.
What about your sister?
My sister, she got married with an Italian person, and so she's in Italy. She's in Milan, and she's retired recently from the Politecnico. She was at Politecnico, and still does some research.
I'm curious about your robotic research back then in Stanford. What were you working on?
So Stanford. So again, at the time, there were very few places in academia that had robots. Robotics really starting. There was a Unimation company. There was a big industrial robots that was just coming out. But there are very, very few places. There was some work at MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, Edinburgh. Very, very few things. So Stanford had 2 robot arms because Dick Scheinman, who is the person who designed those arms, was a student there, had been a student there. And the 2 arms, one was coloring blue, so it was the blue arm, and the other one is coloring yellow, so of course it's the yellow arm. And they were still relatively simple. And the group that we joined at Stanford had developed a programming language to program the robots, which was kind of a higher level language, kind of similar to Algol approximately, but has special instructions to deal with the articulated arm. You have 6 dimensions, and so anytime you have to specify where the arm goes, and again, to give 6 numbers because there are 3 position and 3 orientation. So they developed a language, programming languages, was helping again doing this representation. That's really where we started. I started robotics. At the time, robotics were only manipulation. There were no mobile robots. But at Stanford, there was a student, a graduate student, Hans Moravik, who had a cart, and it was kind of a big cart with wheels, and so they could go outdoors, and he was using computer vision to control the cart. And he found out, I mean, sometimes people don't think about, our cell phone today is much more powerful than the best computers there. So I still remember that Hans had this robot going outside and was taking pictures, sending them, processing, stereo camera. By the time he got the results, the cart outside was kind of lost because the sun moves in the sky. If it takes 2 hours, the sun is a different position, so the shadows are different. And so he discovered that having something outside creates additional problems because you cannot control where the sun is, right? And so if it takes hours to do processing, again, over time things improve, but still remember, that was the first mobile robots was used.
Well, a real pioneer in robotics, AI, and also multi-agent systems. So what can you share with us about your current research?
So right now I have a very large group of students because I like to mentor a number of them, and many of them do very interdisciplinary work. So many of them have co-advisors. I like to explore. When you are a scientist, you can stuck in an area, really keep on diving in the very narrow area, or you can explore. And I like explorers again. I like to do newer things and get faculty working with me that on topics I don't know. So in terms of robotics, we moved from relatively large and big robots to very small robots. So typically we have some robots this size, so we can have multiple of them. So I started focusing more on, if I have many robots are independent, what can we do? And this technical term uses swarm robotics, because they're created in some sense to be similar to, I don't know, ants or insects, right? In which, let's say, ants go around foraging, looking for food, and you have many ants that go around and then take the food to the nest. So that's kind of the standard things. So again, we use some of those small robots to figure out how can we have agents that are independent but collaborate with each other. And my approach in general, the way I kind of work with my students, I don't like to be a boss. I don't like to be the central controller. You do this, you do that, right? So when I think about robots, I also like a similar idea, right? You want the robots to collaborate and share information with each other. So I've done work on task allocation. So if I have multiple robots, I have to go to the library, pick up a book, and then I have to go buy coffee and other things. Instead of me say, you go to the library, the robots can talk to each other, and we use auctions like eBay. And each robot say, well, I can go there, and that's how much will cost me. That's a distance I have, right? That I have to travel. And then, they decide whoever has the lowest cost does the task. So again, it's kind of auctioneer. It simply takes the smallest bid and allocates task. And so again, I still have this habit of trying to avoid the centralized systems. Swarm robotics really, there is no centralized system. So the robots really are independent. Started doing some work more on trust. The notion of trust came out from Italy, from people many years ago. They wrote a very nice paper on trust for agents from Rome. And so now the idea is, can we measure in a quantitative way trust? So each agent can measure how much can I trust the other agents in the team, and then figure out what to do. So again, this is very new work.
Very interesting, very realistic too. I mean, the robots can also have different objectives, right? And so how to include that with the trust? It's
Yes, right. And can be also very different, right? It could be a robot that maybe that is more power and can lift a big piece of junk, and another robot that is small. So again, there are a lot of features that robots can have. Often we assume they all are the same, but it's a simplification, and in fact allowing it's the same as people, if you think about, right? If you have a team, people have their own skills. So we have to kind of figure out the best way of using the individual skills for the advantage of the group.
What excites you the most about current future directions in this field?
Well, AI now is kind of it's a strange time because everybody knows about, everybody talks about, lots of people are scared of, and I think it's exciting because anytime something new happens, they can change the way a lot of jobs are and a lot of things are done. It's exciting. But at this time, I think this is a little more scary than it used to be. AI, again, I was at Stanford multiple times, and John McCarthy, know a lot of the people. The work was progressing very, very slowly, but it's always kind of, on the positive side. Never thought about, making bombs with AI, right? You build expert system, you help people, you do things that can be used. Now things are getting a little more complex because now the systems that are getting built already have improper uses, and not just with the AI. Think about the fake news that been out for a long time. I mean, people can make fake news, but there are also now chatbots or bots that can make fake news. And so now we get to the situation in which we cannot really trust, in general, what we read because we don't know where it comes from. And with the new AI, to think a little bit more. If I see a picture, I don't know. Sometimes people make pictures that clearly, you can kind of see there is a picture, but sometimes they make very realistic. So we get to a point in which there are things we see or we read, and we don't know if they're true or not. So the issue now again, and this gets back a little bit to the trust issue in general. I mean, can I trust? And the other things that is also kind of difficult now has been discussed for many, many years, is now you have drones that can drop bombs and kill people, right? Now this has happened already many times. And this, in the AI community, maybe 10 years ago, when drones started getting used, there was a very large group of people really trying to push for some Geneva type of convention to prevent the use of what are called the killer drones, right? Prevent the use of autonomous drones dropping bombs. And the idea was to require a person to drop the bomb. And this, of course, didn't really make too much progress. In fact, never was ratified. And now it's very common. Now the drones are most of the time, often are autonomous and dropping bombs. And so now you have a technology which could be used for goods, right? People are talking about, we can have drones, delivering medications to people in a remote island, right? I mean, there are always cases in which you can use this technology for good, but the same technology can be used for bad. And I think the same is happening now with AI. So you can do a lot of good stuff, also bad stuff. And how to split, how to figure out. I think that's a big problem in the AI community at the moment.
That's true for most technologies. How do you think AI is different in that regard?
It's more dangerous because now, again, with the AI, again, now you get to the point that you don't know. You read a piece of text. You don't know if it was written by a program or by a person. And you will very soon, when you call the phone, right now you call the phone often, you have this recorded message, human voice, but it's recorded. At some point very soon, you will talk directly with the chatbot. And so the ambiguity, right, that comes from you don't know, can you trust the information or not? That to me is kind of the more scary part. And I don't think there's any way of really avoiding the problem. I mean, people tried trademarks, marks, or something, it doesn't really work. And so the real question is, what will the society decide? Are going to come up with, they're trying to regulate AI. I know Europe has some very strict rules, US has some, there are a lot of rules around. But the question is, again, how can we make sure that, the scares that people have, which I don't think is very realistic, is that AI will take over the world, right? All this system will decide and the humans will become slave. I'm not convinced that that's the case. But to me, again, the distinction between can I trust something or not? Again, what I see, is it real or is it fake? But again, this part kind of bothers me. You're not going to, because of course the companies are all trying to build AI to save money, to make money. But if money is the driver, it's not trying to be truthful, right? Not trying to do the right things, that is the driver. And so that's part a little bit scary. Again, it may take some time, it's not going to happen immediately, but you see more and more and more.
You mentioned being the first woman in the Department of Computer Science at the University of Minnesota, and you're now the principal investigator on a project for increasing diversity in computer science. What can you share with us about it?
Well, that's first, with the current administration, all the stuff is on hold. So we're trying to sort things out. So what we tried to do, so we were concerned because we look at the first computer science class here, which is taken by many students, not necessarily all computer science majors. And we're looking at the success and failure rate. And we saw that we got to about 35 to almost 40% fail. And that's what we are really bothering, even though I think even in Italy, the one idea is the beginning courses have to be filters, right? Because there are bad people, you want to expel them, get them out of the way. But at the same time, filtering too many students out, failing too many students didn't seem to be right. And so we started looking a little bit at the data, more than just the failure. And the large majority of the failing students were women, or the few students we have from underrepresented groups, Hispanic, African American. So we said, well, there's a problem here. There are not too many women, and if we fail a lot of them in the first class. So we started it. So the first activity we did with one faculty here, which she was my PhD student years earlier, we started, sometimes the solutions are very simple. So we started creating we call a pair class, so an evening class, two hours, one night a week. We get the students together and we give them problems, and we are in a classroom with lots of whiteboards. So basically we have a 60 student or so, we give each of them a piece of paper, try to solve those problems, simple problems like we do in the first class. And then they self-organize, they go in front of the whiteboards and they write. No computers, just writing codes. And start learning how you reason about it. Basically, we're doing this evening class again, pass and fail, no grading, just be there and solve problems. We cut down the failure rate to 10%, and now being constant at 10%. So it shows that, something very simple can fix a lot of problems. And so that was kind of the first activity we've done. And we've been, now we're tracking the students. We've done something similar for the second CS class. And again, we got some funding from a university, from the Melinda Gates Foundation, to really study this. And they're trying to do the same with many different universities. So again, how to increase the retention rate in the first class. Because if you lose half of the people there, they're not going to come back.
And as always, let's wrap up with a piece of advice for our young ISSNAF members.
Well, I think, again, if they are in academia, faculty or postdocs or so, I think first, you always have to understand the culture of where you are. And the US culture is quite different from the Italian culture. You don't need to accept everything, but you have to understand it, right? It took me a while to understand. It's much more egocentric, right? People have to be the best in the world. And again, this starts with young kids. And so it's fine again, but doesn't mean you have to do the same, but understand what the culture is, because also the other things which are quite different. Here, work and personal life are mixed a lot. In Italy, they're not, right? In Italy, again, you can befriend the work, but your personal life completely different, right? While here, the job is the most important things in your life. You get success if you're successful at work. So your family, your friends, everything's related to work. And again, nothing wrong, but that's not the way as Italians we think about, right? And so again, simply understanding a little bit the culture, I think, helps in avoid making mistakes. And the other things in general I always recommend is be confident in yourself. Of course, you have to do good work. You have to work hard, right? It's not that you get success and so because you're lazy. Build confidence and then network. But networking is extremely important. And so again, if you are a junior faculty in a department, don't live in your ivory tower. Talk with everybody. Make sure that they know your work, they know what you do, they can help. There are a lot of very good people, right? And of course, networking for our other Italians, like this wonderful society here that connects all the Italians. I think that's also very good, right? For our Italians where you are.
Like ISSNAF.
Exactly, like ISSNAF, exactly. I learned through ISSNAF there were a lot of Italians here in Minnesota, which I didn't
everywhere. Yeah.
But here in Minnesota, again, I didn't know any Italians for many. I didn't really look for, because, I had also to understand the culture here. So I was not looking for Italians. The connections with your culture, because people that I mean, again, I know Italians in many different places now, different universities in the US. And that's also useful, right? I know sometimes I recommend them for awards or other things.
Well, grazie mille.
Again, and thanks for doing the kind of work that you're doing.